أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear students, now I am going to discuss with you new topic of pulmonary tuberculosis. It is defined as a bacterial infection caused by Mycobacterium tuberculi, which most commonly affects the lungs. Regarding epidemiology, it has been estimated that around one third of the population has a latent tuberculosis, and between 2002 up to end of this century, it is estimated that 1,000 million people will become infected by this disease, and 150 million people will contract new disease, while 36 million will die. Unlikely majority of the cases are likely to occur in the world's poorest nation. WHO struggles to cover the cost associated with the management and the control program of the tuberculosis. This picture shows the demographic uh, distribution of the pulmonary tuberculosis. This dark blue color you can see it has the highest number of the TB cases in the world. This area of Africa, this area of Asia, and the second most, the light blue color, you can see India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, and these Central Asia's countries. So this is briefly about the epidemiology of the pulmonary tuberculosis. What are the reasons for the increasing incidence of the pulmonary tuberculosis? These are different for the developed countries and different for the developing countries. In the developed countries, the reason are number one, the immigration from the high prevalence area. Number two is the HIV infection. Number three is the social deprivation, that is the homeless and poverty. And number four is the increasing proportion of elderly with the good health facilities. And number last is the drug resistance, anti-tuberculosis resistance. While in case of developing country, the reasons are ineffective control program, lack of access to the healthcare facilities, poverty, civil unrest, again HIV infection, increase in population, and again ATT resistance. What are the factors which increases the risk of a tuberculosis in any individual? These are divided into two types. One is the patient's related and other is the associated with the other diseases. Patient-related factors includes number one is the age. You can see over here the young age has a less chance, but the two extreme ages, that is the children and the elderly, they have more chances to develop the pulmonary tuberculosis. Number two is the first generation immigrants from the high prevalence countries. Number three is the close contact of patients with the smear positive pulmonary tuberculosis. Next is the overcrowding, like prisons, collective dormitories. And next is the chest radiographic evidence of the self-healed tuberculosis. Then is the primary infection, that is, if it is occurring, it has occurred within a year of the presentation. Associated disease include the immunosuppressive diseases like HIV, drugs like infliximab that also causes immunosuppressions, high dose of steroids and cytotoxic drugs. Malignancies, the patient who has already malignancies like lymphoma, leukemia, or any other malignant disorder of any organ system have increased chances to have a tuberculosis. Similarly, the patient with diabetes, type 1, CRF, silicosis, GIT diseases, and vitamin D deficiency, these have increased chances to develop pulmonary tuberculosis. Now, how the disease is transmitted. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is carried on airborne particles called the droplet nuclei. The size of the droplet nuclei is 1 to 5 microns in diameter. These infectious droplet nuclei are generated when the patient who has pulmonary or laryngeal tuberculosis cough, sneeze, or shout or sing. When any person get actually exposure to these droplet which has been actually produced by active pulmonary tuberculosis patient, so these organisms, these mycobacteria, are actually interacted first with the macrophages, cellular macrophages, and these macrophages, allular macrophages, becomes actually activated. So there is a unchecked bacillary proliferation within the macrophage, and the bacterium is sitting on the multiple site, and then these are released. When these are released, so they actually causes the spread of the further spread of the infection. This whole process occurs within 0 to 3 weeks of the acquiration of the organism. In the next 3 weeks, or after the 3 weeks, what happens? These alveolar macrophages release some interleukins like the interleukin 12, and they get attached with the uh, T lymphocytes through these receptors, and these T lymphocytes becomes activated. When they become activated, they release the interferon gamma, which again activate the further macrophages. And these macrophages then release the tumor necrosing factor and other chemokines, and they all these factors leads to the formation of a granuloma. That is a hypersensitivity reactions. So this is the mechanism by which the granuloma of the tuberculosis is formed. Initially, there is an recruitment of the sensitized T cells, and these T cells then actually converted into the under the influence of different cytokines, and these are converted into the epithelial cells. And when these epithelial cells grows more and more, the central area get necrosis. So this is a typical picture of the granuloma. On histopathology, this will appear. This granuloma will appear like this. These blue dots, these are the actually lymphocytes, and this one is the epithelial cells. What is a latent tuberculosis? When the mycobacteria persist in the body and there are no symptoms, so it is called latent tuberculosis. So there are no signs and symptoms, and the patient is susceptible to reactivation of the disease. Granulomatous lesion calcify and become fibrotic, appear on the chest X-ray. Infection appears in the immunocompromised patients, and it is detected by the tuberculin skin test and interferon gamma release assay. That is called the quantiferon TB gold test. What is a TB disease? When these organisms actually uh, enter into the alveoli, what happens if the immune system cannot keep the tubercular bacilli under the control? These bacilli get actually multiply rapidly. So this layer, when they get rapidly multiplication, so this results in a process of a um, disease of tuberculosis, and it can occur in different areas of the body like lungs. That is the most commonly involved organ, but it can also occur in any other organ system like kidney, brain, and the bones. What are the features of the primary? Actually, tuberculosis is divided clinically into primary tuberculosis, secondary or the reactivation tuberculosis, and as we have discussed, the latent tuberculosis. The latent tuberculosis is the tuberculosis when the patient has no signs and symptoms, but the bacteria are present within the body, and these are detected by the two tests, again, Matous test or Heave test, and by the interferon gamma assay. Primary tuberculosis is it's a when the latent tuberculosis become actually not in the stage of the latent tuberculosis, the patient actually progress to the primary tuberculosis if the immune system of the body is not going to handle it. The patients actually leads to the formation of the granuloma, and the involvement of the surrounding lymph nodes, and this leads to the formation of the bones complex, and the patient presents with some symptoms of the primary pulmonary tuberculosis. And these symptoms, this includes number one, 4 to 5 weeks. Within the 4 to 5 weeks, patient will have an influenza-like illness, skin test conversion, and primary complex. That is the primary lesion along with the, that is the cone complex actually. When the disease advanced, there is involvement of the surrounding lymph nodes. Patient can have pleural and intobronchial tuberculosis. Patient can have a biliary tuberculosis. We will discuss in the next slides. Patient can develop meningitis and the pericarditis. Patient also has at this stage few hypersensitivity reactions, and the patients will have the lesion like erythema nodosum, phyllectanular conjunctivitis, and dactylitis. This is the erythema lesion of the erythema nodosum, which is present on the shin, actually lower limb, on the shin of the both legs. These are the tender. When you touch, the patient feel pain. Erythematous, red one, and these are present on the front of the leg. This is a picture of a phyllectanular conjunctivitis. This is a dactylitis, swelling of the fingers. Sorry, dactylitis, bilateral. These are the signs of hypersensitivity reaction in case of primary tuberculosis. About to cryptic tuberculosis, it occurs in the old age. The patient has an age of more than 60 years, intermittent low-grade fever, unexplained weight loss, general debility. There is a hepatomegaly, hepatosplenomegaly. So in 25 to 50% of the patient, the chest X-ray is usually normal, but patient has blood dyscrasias, decrement reaction, and even pancytopenia. The tuberculin skin tests are negative, and it is confirmed by the biopsy of the tissue, like liver and the bone marrow. And we will find the granuloma as well as the acid fast bacilli on the histopathology and the gram staining of the tissue. Now, the clinical presentation of the scanty or the reactivation tuberculosis, this includes the chronic cough, often with hemoptysis. Praxia of unknown origin means the patient has prolonged history of low-grade evening rise fever. Patient can present with an unresolved pneumonia, means that the patient has fever with some signs, and chest X-ray is showing opacity, which is not going to resolve by the routine antibiotics. Exudative pleural effusion, patient can be asymptomatic, but on the X-ray there are the positive findings. Patient may have weight loss, general debility, and patient can also have a spontaneous pneumothorax. Now, what are the complications that the patients of tuberculosis can have? These can be the pulmonary complications and the non-pulmonary complications. The pulmonary complications includes passive hemoptysis, carpulmonale fibrosis and emphysema, atypical mycobacterial infections, aspergilloma, lung or pleural calcifications, obstructive airway disease, bronchiectasis, bronchopulmonary fistulas. While the non-pulmonary complications, these include empyema necessitans, laryngitis, enteritis, anorectal disease, amyloidosis, and Ponsett disease. This is the picture of a empyema necessitans. Here is the spontaneous discharge of an empyema that has burrowed through the parietal pleura, usually into the chest wall, to form a subcutaneous abscess that eventually may rupture through the skin. So this is a empyema necessitans. Reactivation tuberculosis actually it presents with the gradual onset of the symptoms over weeks and the months, and patients have tired associated with tiredness of the body, malaise, anorexia, weight loss with fever. That is again low-grade night sweat, nighttime fever with night sweats, and patient has a cough that remains outstanding that is the main outstanding features of the pulmonary tuberculosis. Means the patient has a chronic cough. If any patient who is having a chronic cough means more than 2 weeks or 3 weeks should be evaluated for pulmonary tuberculosis. The sputum is in the tuberculosis may be quite purulent and at times it may be having blood stain. That is called hemoptysis. Many patients suffer from a dull ache in the chest, and it is not uncommon for the patients to complain of frequent colds. A pleural effusion or pneumonia can be the presenting features of the pulmonary tuberculosis. Physical examination reveals a little at times, but patient may have a finger clubbing on the GPE if the disease is advanced and is associated with considerable production of the purulent sputum. There are often no signs on the chest, even in the presence of extensive radiological changes, though occasionally persistent crackles may be heard. If the patient is having consolidation, then the signs consolidation, then the signs of consolidation on the examination may be present. At times, patient has a cavitated lesion on the X-ray and the cavity. Those signs of cavity may be present on the examination of the chest. The important signs of cavitation and consolidation is the bronchial breathing over the affected area. Along with these signs, the patient may have the physical signs of associated pleural effusion, associated pneumonia, or fibrosis. What is a miliary tuberculosis? This disease is the result of acute diffuse dissemination of the tubercle bacilli via the bloodstream. It can be difficult to diagnose, especially in the older people where it's particularly covered. These forms of disseminated tuberculosis is universally fatal without treatment. It may present in an entirely non-specific manner with the gradual onset of vague ill health, loss of weight, and then the fever. Occasionally, the disease presents as tuberculous meningitis. Usually, there are no abnormal physical signs in the early stages, although eventually the patient has enlarged spleen and the liver. Choroidal tuberculosis are seen in the on the examination of the eyes. These are the choroidal tubercles in case of involvement of the eye in miliary tuberculosis. Now, how will you investigate these different types of the pulmonary tuberculosis? So, this is the list of the investigation. First, we go for the tuberculin skin tests, sputum examination, ESR imaging like chest X-ray, CT scan, then bacterial culture, rapid molecular assays, and serological test invasive investigations. Skin testing. The skin testing in which we used the purified protein. It derives PPD, and these are of two types. One is the Heave test, and other is the Montoux test. In Heave test, we have a Heave gun, which is already having PPD, and we apply over the forearm on the where there are less actually hairs. So we will check after applying the gun. We circle that area, and we will check the skin after 3 to 7 days. And after and we will go on checking the response of the skin daily basis, and we will create actually these lesions to actually diagnose whether the patient is having positive test or negative test. So the patient in the next picture you will see if the patient is having no response after 3 to 7 days, so it means it's a negative. And if the patient is having just papules, small papules like this, so it's a grade 1, 5, 6 papules, so it's a grade 1. And number 3, you can see these papules. If these papules after 3 7 days, these papules get actually collapse and form a ring, so it's a grade 2. And in grade 3, there is a nodule formation, and in the grade 4, there is a large actually nodule formation. So this is the interpretation of the Heave test. Now the Montoux test. in which we actually have a PPT in a small syringe, and and then subcutaneously we apply on the skin of the forearm, and we will interpret it after the 2 to 4 days. Usually 10 tuberculin units are used to the Montos test, and it is positive when the induration of the skin is more than 5 to 14 mm, that is equivalent to Heave grade 2, or if it is more than 15 mm, that is equivalent to the Heave grade 3 to 4. It has a limited value in the diagnosis of tuberculosis, especially in high prevalence countries. If positive tuberculin test does not itself confirm the diagnosis of tuberculosis, and at the same time, a negative tuberculin test does not exclude the active tuberculosis. However, it is important in non-BCG vaccinated children under the age of 5, where a positive test is more likely to reflect recent infection with tuberculosis and a much higher risk of developing disease. So these are the Heave test and the Montos test, which usually we use in making a diagnosis of pulmonary tuberculosis. Another test is the sputum examination. It's very important one, and it helps in making the definite diagnosis. So we take the sample of the sputum and we go send it for the culture and the ZN staining. The ZN staining will confirm uh, actually the acid fast bacilli. 3 consecutive morning sputum are sent for ZN staining and the gram staining and for the culture. This is the most important and initial investigation for all cases of the suspected tuberculosis. It should be performed on each patient and sputum if not, it should be a sputum, not the saliva. And if the sputum is not coming, so we will actually use different methods to actually produce a sputum like inhalation, bronchodilator inhalation, and we ask the patient to actually cough more and more to produce sputum, because it's very important to have a sputum for the gram staining and the culture, because this gives a high yield of diagnosis. And it should be given in the morning time, as I have told you. Okay, fasting, empty stomach fasting specimen has a greater yield as compared to the other sputums. So this is the sputum examination. Third investigation which helps in making diagnosis is the chest X-ray. This is a chest X-ray for the pulmonary tuberculosis, primary pulmonary tuberculosis. You can see here the involvement is there is an involvement of the right-sided lymph nodes, hilar lymph nodes, and there is a infiltrate of the middle and the lower lobe. And there is a bit loss of the volume on this side as compared to this side. So this is the primary tuberculosis. Primary tuberculosis involves it is confined to the actually middle lobe and has involvement of the surrounding lymph nodes. This is a chest X-ray. You can see there is an opacity in the apical region. There is also an opacity in the middle and the lower region. So the paratracheal lymph nodes are also involved over here. At times there is a cavity formation and at this area. So it's a PA view showing prominent paratracheal area on the right. That is the lymphadenopathy. There is a cavitary opacity over here and focal consolidation in the middle zone of the right lung. Factor why the patient has right upper lobe involvement. There are 2-3 reasons for this favor. One is that it is more densely surrounded by the lymph nodes. Number two, it has a relatively longer length and smaller internal caliber. And number three, it has a sharper branching angle. This is a chest X-ray of the miliary tuberculosis. You can see there is a diffuse involvement of the both sides of the lungs, and the lesions are like a millets, small consolidation, very small consolidation, and widely diffusely distributed in the both lung fields. This is a CT of the chest. You can see a cavitary lesion over over here, and this is the whole of the opacity. It is obtained with the pulmonary window setting in the right upper lobe, showing an irregular, thick walled cavity with some increased marking around it. A nearby nodule is also seen. So this is the chest X-ray, and so this is the CT scan of the chest of the upper lobe. Again, is this CT of the chest of the same patient at the level of the middle lobe, right middle lobe, same patient. Shows a focal area of consolidation. This is the consolidation with wide, maybe the tiny nodules. There are small tiny nodules. The patient has primary progressive tuberculosis with radiographic manifestation of the medial adenopathy. There is a medial sternal adenopathy. And the cavitative intravenous spread that occurs after a short period of time. And other investigations include rapid molecular assay and serological tests. These tests are not recommended to be used routinely. PCR is very sensitive and specific test, but fairly expensive and require expensive equipment. Another investigation is the interferon gamma assay that is usually used for the diagnosis of the latent tuberculosis, and enzyme assays and the chromatographic assays. These are unreliable and ineffective methods not recommended for clinical use, like these Macrodot assay, ICT tuberculosis. These have no role in the diagnosis of any form of pulmonary tuberculosis. Invasive investigations, sorry, these include fasting gastric lavage, usually technique for macroscopy of AFB, especially in children. Bronchoscopy, we take the alveolar lavage, and we can go for the brush microscopy, and we actually culture the sample. And we can do the histopathology, we can do the PCR and the interferon gamma assay on these samples. Where relevant and available, this method has a high diagnostic yield, but is very expensive and not easily available everywhere. Then another invasive investigation is the pleural fluid and pleuroscopy. We take the samples, we take the fluid, and we again can do the macroscopy, we can check the chemistry, we can do the culture, histopathology, PCR, and interferon gamma assay, and adenosine deaminase assessment. Pleural fluid examination is the mainstay of diagnosis in suspected tuberculous pleural disease. Then another investigation, invasive one, that is an invasive one, it's a tissue FNAC or the biopsy, fine needle aspiration of the macroscopy for the acid-fast bacilli, and cytology and tissue biopsy for the culture and histopathology have diagnostic yield in special circumstances. Now, the management of the pulmonary tuberculosis. First of all is the health education of the patient. That is very, very important uh, while managing the patient. Because if the patient has non-compliance of the patient, if the patient leaves that treatment in the midway, then it's very dangerous for the patient as well as for the community and the close contacts. So the health education of the patient is very, very important. So there are few points to be kept in mind while treating the patient after pulmonary tuberculosis. Number one, general public should be taught about the importance of the early attendance at a healthcare facility for those who have the chest symptoms, especially cough persistent for more than 2 weeks or more. So it's very, very important that the community should be aware that if any person who is having cough more than 2 or 3 weeks, he should attend the doctor to exclude the pulmonary tuberculosis. Number second point is there should the effort should be made to make the people aware of the nature of the tuberculosis, as to know that it's a curable disease with adequate treatment, but if not treated properly, it may result in infection of the other people's disability and the death of the individual. Another point to be discussed with the patient is that the social support services, poverty eradication program, that should be at the government level, so that there should be a good hygiene and the healthy living of the persons. There should be a good communication between the tuberculosis patient and the healthcare provider who treat him. Supervised treatment by the healthcare provider or the trained volunteers is an essential component of the tuberculosis control, and the healthcare provider should make utmost effort to ensure completion of the treatment by the patient till the cure has been achieved. So these are the points which should be kept in the mind while you start the treatment of the pulmonary tuberculosis. Now, the drug treatment, we divide the pulmonary anti-tuberculous drugs into two types. One is the first line ATT and the second line. In the first line, there are the five drugs. One is the ethambutol, isoniazid, paracetamide, rifampicin, and streptomycin. The second line drugs includes aminoglycosides like amikacin, kanamycin, polypeptides like capromycin, viomycin, and viomycin, fluoroquinolones like ciprofloxacin, levo, and oxyfloxacin. Then is the thioamides like ethanoamides, prothioamides. Then is the cycloserine and tazidone. These are the second line antituberculous drugs. How to manage, then how to give these drugs. Before going to put the patient on the treatment, we categorize the patient into three types. One is the new cases, another is the retreatment cases, and third is the treatment failure. So the new cases, what are the new cases? The patients who have received the treatment for the tuberculosis are taken it for less than 1 month. These are the new cases actually, are the patient who has taken just for 1 month previously and has stopped the treatment. That is also included in the new cases. And these are severe positive pulmonary tuberculosis, severe negative pulmonary tuberculosis. What do you mean by smear positive? Smear positive means the patient has signs and symptoms suggestive of pulmonary tuberculosis with sputum positive for the acid fast bacilli. While the smear negative patient has the typical history examination, there are physical examination shows some findings in the chest, and the X-ray is suggestive of typical lesion of the pulmonary tuberculosis. But three consecutive sputum examination is negative for the acid fast bacilli. So it is called smear negative pulmonary tuberculosis or the extrapulmonary tuberculosis. So these three are included in the new cases, and we give the treatment for this patient. We give the short chemotherapy. That is the initial phase in which we give the four drugs for 2 months, and continuation phase in which we give the two drugs for the 4 months. So 2HRZE means H is for isoniazid, R for rifampicin, Z for paracetamide, and E for ethambutol. These are given and directly observed. These drugs are given by someone is actually are the close family member, or the healthcare provider is advised to see the patient day on the daily basis. The patient is taking the anti-tuberculosis drugs regularly. So this is called the under direct observation treatment, and it is given for 2 months. Then after the 2 months, we will give the patient two drugs. That is the isoniazid and the rifampicin for 4 months. How to monitor the treatment? We actually monitor the treatment by the sputum examination if the patient is smear positive. So we go for the at the end of the initial phase, sputum is performed, and that is at the end of the second month. During the continuation phase, that is the start of the fifth month, and at the end of the treatment, that is the 6 month of treatment. So we will go for the monitoring. What is a DOTS? It's a directly observed treatment. Retreatment cases, these include failure, treatment after default, and the relapses. A drug susceptibility test should be performed when the results are known. The regime may need to be adapted according to the susceptibility test results. New positive severe new patients severe positive after 5 months of the therapy need to be started on the retreatment. The recommended treatment of this group is 8 months as follows. The initial phase is for 2 months we gave HREZ, that is isoniazid, rifampicin, ethambutol, and paracetamide plus streptomycin. And for the next 3 months, for the next 1 month, we gave only four drugs: HREZ, that is isoniazid, rifampicin, ethambutol, and paracetamide. So these are the 3 months. For initial 2 months, the streptomycin is given, and for the next 1 month, these four drugs are given without streptomycin. In the continuation phase, we give the three drug combination for a period of 5 months with INH plus rifampicin and ethambutol. So it's a 5HRE. Again, we monitor the therapy response of the therapy by the doing the sputum examination. We did it at the end of the initial phase, that is at the end of the 3 months, and during the continuation phase, that is the start of the fifth month, and at the end of the treatment, that is the end of the 8th month. Then is the retreatment failure. This is the group of the patients who during the retreatment regime are found to be smear positive in the 5th month of the treatment regime, or a case of relapse of having completed the full course of the retreatment regime. So this group is considered as drug-resistant TB suspect, and their sputum should be collected for the culture and drug sensitivity testing at the outset. And a special treatment regime is designed and instituted with the combination of the second-line anti-TB drugs, pending the receipt of the bacteriological results. All the patients have to be referred to the drug-resistant tuberculosis management centers and registered with the NTP drug-resistant registry as a suspect. NTP is the National Treatment Program, National Tuberculosis Treatment Plan. NTP is a national treatment program for the tuberculosis. All close contacts are to be traced and evaluated for the tuberculosis. So this is briefly about the pulmonary tuberculosis. You go through this whole of the lecture, as well as you can study your textbook of Principles of Medicine by the Davidson. And if you have any query, any questions, you can ask on the Google Classroom. Thank you very much.